Today, we review our first baguette, the Renault Clio. It's got some quirky things about it, but how does it stack up against the Germans? Let's have a look. My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. Okay, firstly, what the hell is this? This has got to be the ugliest key for a car I think I've ever seen. I see they're trying to make it like a credit card to fit in your wallet, but god damn, just no. Anyway, the engine, it's, yeah. Hey, it's got a turbo at least. At 0.9 litres of displacement, 90 horsepower and 135 newton meters of torque, it's certainly not going to break any land speed records. But let's see if it can come up with anything on the 30 to 70 sprint. Well, unsurprisingly, it's right at the bottom. With a time of 12.13 seconds, it's even way off a 1 litre Polo. Is it quick enough for motorway driving though? Well, just. The turbo really saves the day here. Inside you're greeted with a funky blue steering wheel, manual shifter and a surprisingly good infotainment system. It's no iDrive, but it doesn't lag either. Another thing I quite like is the HVAC controls. No fuss, just whack it in auto and select the temp. Surprisingly, everything seems to be function over form in here. Not exactly what I expected from a French car. To get into the back, you use these neatly tucked away door handles, but once you're in, you'll realise there's a total lack of space back here. I'm not even that tall, and I'm pretty uncomfortable, so I wouldn't want to spend much time back here, especially on a long journey. Features-wise, there's a single cup holder, and, well, that's it really. Oh, one cool thing though, is the ceiling-mounted seatbelt. I always love a bit of quirky design that actually works well too. The boot certainly doesn't impress initially, but when you consider its rivals like the Fiesta and the Polo, the 300 litres this Renault has is actually really decent. The opening's a fairly good shape, and it's pretty deep, so taller items are pretty easy to fit in. Fold the seats down, and you're met with a cliff between the boot and the cabin, so good luck getting those longer items in. Let's go for a drive though, as I've heard the French make some pretty fun little cars. So what's it like? Well, over speed bumps, it's a little bit squeaky. I can forgive it a bit though, because it is nearly 10 years old. Pedal weights are interesting, they're not very consistent, so the throttle pedal has almost no weight to it whatsoever. But the brake pedal is really quite heavy. Clutch is nice and light, bite point is still good, even though this car is old. I don't know if it's had a clutch change recently, but I don't think it has. One disadvantage is that I can't actually see my speed, so I'm kind of having to guess how fast I'm going. Anyway though, the gear shift is nice and slick, it's not too notchy, everything's just kind of easy, nothing's that hard in this car. The other thing I'm noticing is a very interesting noise coming from the engine bay. Now this is, of course, a 3-cylinder engine, so it's not exactly the smoothest thing in the world, but as 3 cylinders go, even then it's a little bit rough. Right, parking. 5-speed gearbox, so to get into reverse it's just that, and you do have to be a little bit careful, you have to really put it in reverse, otherwise you get that horrible grinding noise. Visibility out the back is okay, it's not the best, but it's fine. Turning circle is very good, there's plenty of steering lock. And we got parking sensors that are pretty accurate. Can't complain really. Right. Coming out of junctions, half throttle. Oh, there's not a lot of power to be had, is there? It is a turbo though, so on the motorway it should be fine theoretically. Anyway, let's reset our trip computer to see what MPG we get. Oh, you got to hold it down. It's all these little things that are slightly different from German cars. Not entirely sure what it's supposed to get on the motorway, but I will put the figure up in the top right here. Before we get on the motorway, of course, we've got to do the obligatory handling test. There is no sports mode in this thing. It's a choice between eco or normal, so I'm going to go for normal. Rev matching is actually surprisingly easy. Also couldn't find a traction control button, but let's see how it handles. Foot down. No drama really. Doesn't like changing gear quickly. That's 60. Oh, we made it. We made it to 70. Oh, we've got a bit of a clearer M25 today, so we can set the cruise control to 70 miles an hour and see what this Renault Clio is like. Well, the first thing you notice is there's quite a lot of wind noise. Yeah, not so much road noise, although I can't really tell because there's so much wind noise. I don't know if it's got a lot of road noise or not. And before we move on to the comfort side of things, I just want to point this out. So in pretty much every German car, you've got your cruise control on the steering wheel, and that's the same with this Renault Clio. But if you press this button, nothing happens. What you actually have to do is go down here to the center console and select between either a limiter or your cruise control. If you leave it in the middle, this button just does nothing. It's like, why would you put that in a car? You would just press that and it would just do it, surely. No, you get a select between cruise control and a limiter. Very interesting design choice there. Anyway, in terms of comfort, it's actually alright. I can get nice and low in the seats. There's not so much adjustability to be had, but the way they are, as they are, they're pretty comfortable, yeah. Suspension settles down pretty well on the motorway. Steering is nice and light, although it does sort of move about a little bit. It's not super tight. And then armrests are actually okay. The one on the right hand side on the door card is absolutely à point, but the center console armrest isn't as good because there's not much adjustability to be had. It's just up and down. You can't move it forwards or backwards like you can in a Golf or a Polo. Then in terms of visibility, that's also pretty good on the motorway. The A pillars and the B pillars are nice and thin. I think the reason for that is because there's not as much plastic trim as there would be on a German car. So you can see in your blind spot fairly easily. Then on the right hand side you've got a curved wing mirror, so you can actually see in your blind spot really well. On the left you don't have that, so you do have to be a little bit careful if you're moving over into the left lane. But overall I'd say it's fairly good. Then in terms of interior quality, wherever you rest your arms seems to be alright. It's covered in cloth. But the top of the door cards are just solid plastic. Whole dash is plastic. I don't think this is squidgy material, is it? Oh no, it is. It is squidgy material. That's not bad. But yeah, its overall quality is subpar. But the one good thing about plastic trim is wear and tear seems to be pretty good. There aren't any big scratches anywhere apart from on the piano black plastic trim, but everything else seems fine. There are surprisingly no rattles as well. I was expecting this car to be a little rattle box, but it seems to be fine. But if there were some things I would change in this interior, like spec wise, and I only had 3 choices, what would I choose? Well, the first thing is going to be an even better sound system. This is actually the upgraded sound system, and I don't quite know how to describe it. It's fine up until about 2/3 volume, and then it kind of sounds like it's literally shaking itself to pieces. I think that is literally what it's doing. Because when you go above 2/3 volume, it kind of just turns everything into mush. So yeah, I would definitely get a better speaker system. Would have to be aftermarket though. Then the next thing would also be aftermarket, and that would be sound insulation. I kind of just want it to be a little bit quieter inside, as doing long journeys in this thing would be pretty tiring. I can see why I pass a lot of these things on the motorway doing 50, 60 miles an hour, because when you're sitting at 70, The wind noise is so bad that trying to have a conversation in here is pretty much impossible. And then the last thing would just be all-round parking sensors. I think this kind of car is perfect for pootling around town in. It's got enough power for low-speed manoeuvring. Anyway, the big question, is a 0.9 litre engine big enough for motorway driving? Well, thankfully, because it's got a turbo, it's actually fine. Even in 5th gear, when you put your foot down, it does just gently pick up speed, quick enough that you're not sort of waiting for the power to come in. The only thing you do need to be mindful of is that that turbo does come in quite late, or it certainly feels like it does, at about 2,500 RPM. But you put your foot down, and yeah, it builds speed fairly well. It keeps up with high-speed motorway traffic. Whether it'll be enough to have a little bit of fun though, I don't know. We'll find that out in a minute. We're going to do a couple more miles on the M25 and then see exactly what MPG figure we can get out of this thing. So far, we're only doing 41.4. Should be better than that. Well, we finally made it off the motorway. So how did we do in terms of miles per gallon? Well, we managed 40. Yeah, that's not very good, is it? I think the reason for that is the fact you're just sitting at such a high RPM at 70 miles an hour. And the second thing is, the engine is pretty much always working hard. As soon as you get above 50 miles an hour, the engine is sitting at like 50% throttle most of the time. So I think the most you're going to get out of this on a long run is about 45 mpg, which is just not good enough, really. It just needs, I mean, it could do with a 6-speed gearbox. I think then you would probably get over 50. But A, that's not really close to the quoted figure, and B, something like a Golf R can quite easily get over 45 miles per gallon on a long journey. Anyway, let's throw this thing around some corners and see if it's exciting. Right, we're back into normal mode. Let's see what this chassis is like. Wow. There is a lot of front grip. What the heck? I was not expecting this. That was a bit of a rough gear change. Right, let's see what the brakes are like. They are good, actually. So far, colour me impressed. Just need to get rid of a little bit of traffic so I can go even quicker. Sound check. Ooh. That's got to be one of the nicest 0.9 litre engines you've ever heard. This though, there's quite a lot of competence with this chassis. Doesn't understeer, actually kind of oversteers a bit. It's already more fun than the Golf. God, the Golf is a little bit quieter inside though. Actually go round again. Of rotation. It's a shame you can't turn the traction control off. There's got to be a way somehow. If you guys know how to turn it off, comment below. Got a bit of a clearing this time. Ah! Come on. Right, down some tighter stuff then. This is where even a tiny engine can keep up with the faster car. Yeah, suspension deals with bumps well. What about a big one? Yeah, it does alright. Brakes are nice and sharp. As you can see, the typical Renault driver isn't that partial to speed. Nice. Steering's light, but it is fairly sharp actually. We're building speed. We're building speed. I think that was 60. Bump on the way back. Ooh. Yeah. Once you're going quicker, the suspension does seem a little bit loose. But the steering, not a lot of feel, but it is precise. There's space to move about in your lane. You can feel the rear squiggling around. Even though you can't turn the traction off, it's still more dynamic than a Golf. Oh hey. You can feel what the car's doing. In terms of fun, it's in between a Fiesta and a Golf. A Fiesta is still the more fun car. But there is some enjoyment to be had down a B road with this thing. So, what kind of person should buy this car? Well, it's cheap, great round town, and actually pretty fun on a B road. I'd say if you live in the sticks, it's actually a better buy than a Polo or even an old Golf. However, if you are doing motorway miles, I'd go with an old Golf. A tiny bit more expensive, but much more relaxing on those longer journeys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, give it a like and why not subscribe, as not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale. My name's Tom and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.